We are looking at the desired savings curve shown by this graph on our right. But before I get drawing that and showing you the relationship between interest rates and desired savings, I'm going to do a two-period consumption model because it relates. Okay, so assume a person lives for 2 periods. He can spend all his money in period 1. So this would be the budget constraint period 1, spending it all now. And for period 2, it would be how much he saved in period 1 times the interest rate, 1 plus the interest rate. So if he saved it all, he would then have this much money to consume in period 2. If he spent nothing in period 1, it would be C1 plus how much interest he also gained. Okay. So one point that is quite significant on this graph is a point where, it's a bit smaller, where income in period 1 minus taxes is equal to income in period 2 minus taxes. And the reason why this point is not at the end is because he can borrow money. So the amount he consumes in period 1, this constraint is constrained by how much money he can possibly borrow plus how much income he had, minus his taxes, of course. So at this point here, anyone who consumes more in period 1 than this point will fall on this part of the budget constraint, and it's a borrower. And anyone above it is a lender, because when you save money, this is then lended out to other people by banks. So you're a saver or a lender and a borrower down this end. Okay, so we've got this random person, we'll call him Jimmy. We can put on some budget indifference curve. I'll just draw that point back on. That's that point there. So we can draw an indifference curve. What will Jimmy want to do? Jimmy wants to consume this much in period 1 and then save this much for period 2. So what happens when the real interest rate decreases? Well, we're going to see a shift of this budget constraint because the amount he saves times the interest rate, it'll be a lesser amount than before. So what happens? We can draw a new budget constraint, a new indifference curve. Oops. It'll look something like that. So the starting point for Jimmy was to consume this much in period 1, however now he consumes this much in period 1. So he's almost to the point where he's borrowing in period 1, and that is due to the decrease in interest rate. There's another effect going on here called the income effect, and we can draw a new budget constraint through where he ends up, but parallel to the other income budget constraint line. If we then draw his indifference curve based on this, and we draw a dot here, So this is, hang on. What I've done here is I've drawn a line parallel to the original budget constraint and then shown what would happen with his preferences if this was the case. Now what this is doing is it's isolating the effect of the change in income, because he has less income now because his interest rate has decreased, so any interest on his income has now decreased. And the effect is a decrease in consumption 1. Because he feels poorer, so he wants to save some money. So it's that effect there. And then the other effect is the effect that around the pivot. So if you have a curve and you draw two straight lines, one like this and one like this, bad example, and one like that, you can see it intersects here and it intersects up here. So that's the substitution effect. So he now hits a different point on his indifference curve, a different place, and he prefers now to consume more in period 1 because there's less reward for saving his money. So the substitution effect goes all the way from there up to there. As you'll see, the substitution effect is greater, and a decrease in interest rates sees an increase in more spending now, and therefore a decrease in desired savings. So the opposite would be an increase in interest rate would see an increase in desired savings. So empirical studies have shown that the substitution effect tends to be greater, and for this reason the relationship between interest rate and desired savings is a positive one, i.e. a decrease equals a decrease and an increase is an increase. So that's how the desired savings curve is derived based on the consumer preferences. What this here on the left looks at an individual person. However, on the right, this model was looking at the whole economy and how much they want to save. So we're looking at national savings on this scale. Now, what was the formula for national savings? Well, the formula for private savings is here. The formula for public savings is here. And by adding these two together, we get the formula for national savings, or savings desired. And it equals income minus desired consumption. Desired consumption because we're looking ahead into the future. Minus government spending minus net factor payments. Another effect that happens is consumption smoothing motive. So that is when consumers tend to keep a consistent consumption over time. Studies have shown they tend to do this, and it's because they want to keep having the same goods that they already have. They don't want to feel like they're decreasing the amount of ice cream they have every night because they can't afford it. They'll try and keep it nice and smooth, and people have habits, so they tend to spend the same amount each week. So that's the effect of consumption smoothing. So holding Y, G and net factor payments constant, there is a positive relationship between R and S, because an increase in R will see a decrease in desired consumption right now. A decrease in desired consumption here, because it's minusing off, to balance it out, we'll see an increase in national savings here. And that's the relationship we see here with the red line on the right hand side. So, back to the question. Real interest rates rise. This will just see a movement along the curve. Number 2, the future looks bleak and expected incomes fall. A lower expected future income leads to less consumption today because they're going to be poorer in the future, and they'll have less desire to consume today because they think they're going to get pretty poor, So let's go back to this formula. If consumption desired decreases, well then national savings will have to increase to remain equal. So this here, number 2, we'll see, let's get out my toolbox, a shift in the savings desired curve outward, i.e. an increase. Ooh. So the government decreases its spending on goods and services. Well, we can go to the formula. They decrease their spending because it's minusing off our national savings. A decrease in government spending will see an increase in national savings. So the last one is, in addition to the decrease in spending, the government raises taxes. Now, what will this affect? Now, you may think income straight away, but no. Its main effect will be on the desired consumption, and it will decrease the desired consumption, therefore increasing the desired national savings. One other one that isn't listed here is an increase in income. So you might ask, why would an increase in income increase desired savings? Well, looking at the formula, it's obvious. However, you'd think, why wouldn't a change in tax do the same thing? And it comes down to a marginal propensity to consume. So this is the proportion of your income you spend on consumption, and consumption smoothing as well. So people wanting to maintain a similar amount of consumption, when income rises, their consumption's going to stay relatively straight lined, and therefore in the income they'll have more money to save, which will increase your desired savings. So I hope that helps clarify those two things, and thank you for listening.